Hello and welcome to the Godzilla Iceberg. And before we begin, I need to warn you about something. You see, I kind of suck at speaking. And if you've watched my videos before, you probably know that, and that I mispronounce things all the time. I'm going to try my hardest here, but I'm going to 100% at some point mispronounce some Japanese names and words. Maybe even some monster names, who knows. If that irritates you, I don't really know what to tell you. Like, imagine getting mad at some dude because they can't pronounce, like, the name of a kaiju or something. Also, there's going to be very little entries, if any at all, about the Monsterverse, as I've already done an iceberg dedicated to that franchise. So, if you like the video and want more Godzilla content from me, go check that one out. Sound good? Oh, right, and also all background footage taken from YouTube. The original sources, the gameplay, will be linked in the description. So, with that all out of the way, let's begin. Godzilla in Hell. Godzilla in Hell is a 5-issue comic miniseries released from July to November 2015 that tells the story of Godzilla's descent into and escape from Hell. During his time in Hell, he battles old foes and new foes alike, and even kills Cthulhu. Well, okay, not really Cthulhu, but you see in the final issue, Godzilla battles a kaiju simply called the God Demon that takes heavy inspiration from Cthulhu. This miniseries is known for some crazy shit going down, such as the God Demon being killed by Godzilla after Godzilla gets eaten alive by trillions of small demons, only for them to take up the form of Godzilla, and each of those little demons then fire off an atomic breath at once. There's also demonic versions of Ghidorah, Varan, Destroya, and Gearus, and Rodan that appear in the story, and at one point, Heaven itself attempts to recruit Godzilla into their army. But Godzilla refuses, and eventually both the Angels of Heaven and the Demons of Hell begin to worship him. But Godzilla's just like, dude, I don't care. And then just kind of eats some of the angels and demons before walking off. A true Sigmazilla. I highly recommend Godzilla in Hell, as it's an insane ride with amazing art. In fact, each issue is actually done by a completely different creative team, so you basically get 5 different takes on Godzilla slaughtering Hell. Godzilla vs. Gamera. Godzilla vs. Gamera is a fairly popular matchup that fans of both franchises discuss fairly often. To many people, it seems rather odd that the two faces of Japan's most famous kaiju franchises have never actually faced off against each other at one point. Well, there were multiple attempts to get a film like this made. The most famous example was in 2002, when Kadokawa, the company that owns Gamera, approached Toho and offered to co-produce a film titled Godzilla vs. Gamera. Toho then simply declined the offer and went on to create the rest of the Millennium films, while Kadokawa made one more Gamera film, and that's it. That, like, 2016 teaser thing, that was for nothing, apparently, because, I mean, it was supposed to, like, gauge interest, but I guess it didn't get enough interest. R.I.P. Gamera. Bagan. Oh, poor Bagan. You see, Bagan is a scrapped kaiju that was supposed to appear in 9 different films, but was scrapped from each of them. His first appearance was supposed to be in the film Resurrection of Godzilla in 1980, where he'd be a kaiju that keeps on evolving into different things. First, he'd start out like an ape-like creature, and then become like a sea monster by the end of the film. When that film was cancelled, so was he. But when the film was revived in 1983, so was he. But then that revival was cancelled, so again, he went away. Then, in 1990, there was supposed to be a Mothra movie titled Mothra vs. Bagan, where he'd be a Chinese demon that was like the ancient enemy of Mothra. But then that film got cancelled. Then, the third installment of the Heisei film series, before it was titled Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, was supposed to be a direct sequel to both the Mothra film as well as Godzilla vs. Biollante. In this film, Bagan would be created by aliens who were responsible for the Nazca civilization's extinction. But because the Mothra film was cancelled, so was this film. Then the film was turned into Mothra vs. Godzilla. No, not that one. That's a different film altogether. And Bagan was set to appear in the film, but then that movie was cancelled. Then in 1991, the film Godzilla vs. Bagan was in production, but it was cancelled after King Ghidorah proved to be a much more popular choice with the audiences. But hey, in 1995, Bagan got one final chance to appear in the Heisei era, yet again, and yet again another version of Godzilla vs. Bagan. But then this was cancelled as well. Bagan was intended to appear in the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy, but his appearance was ultimately scrapped. And he was meant to play some kind of role in the cancelled sequel to Orichi, the Eight-Headed Dragon. Despite all of his failed film appearances, Bagan has appeared in 2 different video games, Super Godzilla in 1993, where he served as the final boss, and in Godzilla Movie Studio Tour in 1998. Here's hoping that one day we'll get to see Bagan on the big screen. We won't, though. Godzilla and the Lost Continent. Godzilla and the Lost Continent is quite possibly the most famous piece of Godzilla lost media. Intended to be the 5th installment in Random House's young adult Godzilla novel series in the 90s, this book was cancelled despite being pretty much complete, because bookstores wouldn't take any more Godzilla books because of how badly the 1998 Godzilla film was received, despite the book having nothing to do with the film. Though you can actually read a bit of the book, as a 12-page preview of it was included at the very end of the novel, Godzilla vs. the Robot Monsters. Godzilla vs. Zilla. Alright, here's a quick quiz. Which of these pictures is Godzilla? I'm going to take a wild guess and say at least 90% of you said, oh, well, all of them except for these two. Well, you'd be wrong. You see, Zilla isn't actually Zilla in Godzilla 98. The trademark for the kaiju of that movie is Godzilla. So yes, technically this is still an incarnation of Godzilla, which makes this an incarnation of Mechagodzilla. But yeah, technically Zilla is a completely different monster that first appears in Final Wars. The many different motivations behind Godzilla. Godzilla throughout the decades has changed a few times. Sometimes he's the embodiment of atomic weaponry, sometimes the heroic savior of mankind, sometimes he's a kind, loving father. Not really. Sometimes he's a ticking time bomb that was once a dinosaur called the Godzillasaurus. Sometimes he's the collected spirits of every Japanese person who died in World War II, seeking revenge. Sometimes he's just an iguana that can asexually reproduce. And sometimes he's based on the 2011 Japanese earthquake, and is just in constant pain, wants to die, but can't, and is always internally screaming. Or sometimes he's just a cartoon character. Basically, the dude's been through a lot, and there's really no definitive version of Godzilla. Shin Godzilla's first form. Now, if you've seen Shin Godzilla, you'll know that Godzilla goes through 5 different forms in the film. The 2nd through 5th forms we actually see a lot of, but his first form is still a mystery. In fact, all we see of this form in the film is its tail and back, so all we really know is that Godzilla in this form is red and has tan dorsal fins. We can't even check the CG models of the film, or the practical models, as the tail is the only thing ever rendered. Some people don't even know that the 1st and 2nd forms are different, as when you Google Shin Godzilla first form, you get images of its 2nd form. Despite not knowing much about it, that hasn't stopped fans from speculating at what it looks like. Most seem to agree it probably looks nearly identical to the 2nd form, just without its limbs. The Bride of Godzilla. The Bride of Godzilla was a cancelled Godzilla film that would have served as the direct sequel to Godzilla Raids Again, making it the 3rd Godzilla film. In this film, a giant humanoid robot called the Bride of Godzilla is created to battle Godzilla and Anguirus, if they ever return. There's also a mermaid family in this film that battles a giant octopus, and a woman gets her memories placed inside the Bride of Godzilla. And then the Bride of Godzilla then decides to just kill Anguirus by ripping his throat out, and then explodes in a hydrogen bomb explosion that supposedly kills her and Godzilla. Oh, and there's also a giant Archaeonyx for some reason. Like, that's one of the main monsters of the film. Basically, it was a very strange movie, and that's just a super brief recap. I suggest you go read the full plot synopsis yourself, as I can't really do it justice. Anyways, the film ended up not happening because it was feared that the film would be too expensive to make. So instead, we got Godzilla vs. King Kong, which is a win in my book. Hanna-Barbera. Godzilla, the original animated series, was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon released from September 9th, 1978 to December 8th, 1979. It was produced by both Toho and Hanna-Barbera, and was the first animated Godzilla project to ever be released, and the first Godzilla series to ever air in the United States. While the show does have a cult following, it's become kind of forgotten to time, as outside of Godzilla, the single other monster from his rogues gallery ever appears in the show. The closest we get is a kinda new version of Vanilla named Godzuki, who is basically Godzilla's Scrappy-Doo. What's interesting about this version of Godzilla is that he's technically the 2nd tallest Godzilla ever, at 400 feet exactly. He also looks very different than any other Godzilla that's come before and since. The show lasted for 26 episodes and hasn't really gotten much attention since its final episode aired. That was until 2021, when in Godzilla Singular Point, you can actually see Godzuki's arm and wing as a plush toy, along with the cartoon versions of Godzilla Jr., the Giant Turtle, and the Kamidethrax from the 98 cartoon. Marvel. From 1977 to 1979, Marvel released a 24-issue comic series titled Godzilla King of the Monsters that took a very different approach to Godzilla. The series started out with the intention of it being canon to the Showa films, but that quickly changed when Marvel then decided to integrate Godzilla into the main Marvel continuity, meaning that yes, Godzilla has interacted with and battled with a bunch of Marvel heroes like Thor, Iron Man, the Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Captain America, Ant-Man, etc. Oh yeah, and in this story, Godzilla was sent through time by Doctor Doom, which led to him helping Moon Boy and Devil Dynasty battle lizard people in prehistoric times. The comic was pretty wild. Eventually, Marvel did lose the rights to produce Godzilla comics, though, and because of that, Godzilla left the mainstream Marvel universe. Well, let me rephrase that. The name Godzilla left. Because of how different this version of Godzilla was, he was actually allowed to stay in the Marvel comics, but they couldn't call him Godzilla. So to play it safe, Marvel would only use Godzilla very rarely in comics, and change his design even more. As of right now, Godzilla in the mainline Marvel universe looks like this, and is now known as Leviathan, and oh, he's dead. Godzilla is dead. Godzilla Monster Apocalypse. Godzilla Monster Apocalypse is a prequel novel to the film Godzilla Planet of the Monsters, released in 2017. It, along with its sequel novel, tells the story about how the kaiju apocalypse destroyed humanity and Earth itself. As of right now, there's no English translation of it, despite that being in high demand. Now you might be wondering, why is this such high demand? Don't people not like the anime trilogy? Well, you see, from what we know about it, the novel features literally almost every single Godzilla monster that's ever appeared. And from what plot we do know, it sounds more interesting than the film itself. At least in my opinion. Seriously, it's crazy how many kaiju show up in this book. Like there's Hedorah, Daggera, Barem, Orga, Gabara, Bagalon, Ibera, Gazora, Kettlebass, Genomez, Manda, the Griffin, the Giant Octopus, Anguirus, Varan, Baragon, Magma, Megaguirus, Rodan, Biollante, Kumunga, Zilla, Gorosaurus, Mothra, Dagora, Kamikarus, King Caesar, Destroya, Meganula, Mechagodzilla, Gigan, and even the Giant Condor. The Hollywood Walk of Fame. In celebration for the release of Godzilla Final Wars, Godzilla received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame just before the film premiered. Godzilla even showed up to the event, and seemed pretty hyped about it. Jet Jaguar's origin. Jet Jaguar was the result of a contest held from 1971 to January 1972, called Children Monster University. In this contest, children would send in ideas and designs for a new monster to appear in the upcoming Godzilla film, Godzilla vs. Megalon. In March 1972, the child who won his design looked like this. Yeah, it's a little different than how Jet Jaguar usually looks. Interestingly enough, this design was used in early promotions and even had a suit made for it. However, it wasn't accurate to the design that won the contest at all, actually, as the design didn't have that color scheme and it was just white. But then his design would be further changed for the film to be more like an Ultraman character, and eventually, we got what we got. Ultimately, the only trait of Red Alone, which was the name of the monster's design that won the contest, that survived into the final design was the pattern and color of its torso. Other than that, Jet Jaguar and Red Alone are completely different entities. Godzilla 1998 sequel. Godzilla 1998 was meant to be the start of a massive franchise. Not only was it supposed to get a cartoon sequel series, which we got, but there's also supposed to be at least 2 different sequel films released. Now, as far as I know, we know nothing about the third entry of the series, but we actually know quite a lot about the cancelled sequel. I'll leave a link to a video explaining the majority of the plot in the description below, but to do a really quick summary, the film was intended to take place primarily in Australia, and begins just like the cartoon, as Nick Topoulos discovers the baby Godzilla, who is now imprinted on him. After separating for 2 years, the two are reunited in Australia, as Nick is sent to investigate a Godzilla report, as Godzilla is being blamed for attacks it didn't actually commit. The Godzilla from earlier is now the size of the first Godzilla and has its own herd of baby Teenzillas. Nick and Godzilla then bond as Godzilla recognizes Nick as its mother, and it's revealed later in the film that this Godzilla actually has fire breath. Then a new kaiju appears who's actually responsible for the attacks, called the Queen Bitch. No, that's not a joke. I'm not doing like a little bit. That's actually what it's called. The military then kills all but one of the baby Zillas, which causes the queen bitch and her swarm to begin spreading rapidly across the country. Godzilla then eventually helps out the military battle and kill the queen bitch, and swims off to Monster Island with the last surviving baby as the film ends. Again, super brief summary, but honestly, the full summary doesn't sound too bad, actually, and I would have liked to see this film been made. Godzilla Cataclysm. Godzilla Cataclysm was a 5-issue miniseries released by IDW from May 2014 to August 2014, and is about Godzilla winning. In this universe, Godzilla has destroyed most of the world and has sent humanity back to a more primitive state. In this story, Biollante is actually one of the hero kaiju, as she's desperately trying to regenerate the planet alongside Mothra, who acts as her protector. Godzilla obviously doesn't want this to happen, so conflict arises in this post-apocalyptic nightmare. This entire situation only happened because humanity built a mind control device years ago that allowed psychics to make the kaiju of the world passive, but then it kind of backfired and yeah, the world kind of got screwed over. Also, Destroyer shows up, so that's not really a good thing for humanity. It's a pretty great read, and makes me wish we could get a live-action or animated post-apocalyptic Godzilla movie. Dogzilla. Dogzilla is a children's book released in 1993, written by Dave Pikey, and you might recognize it from your school library or your Scholastic Book Fair. Remember those? Do those still happen? Anyways, the book tells the story of a bunch of mice in Mouseopolis being attacked by the terrifying Dogzilla, who ultimately gets defeated when it gets blasted with water. Only for a year later, a bunch of Dogzilla puppies burst out from a volcano, which I just assume ends the world. There was also a companion book made called Cat Kong, but no Dogzilla vs. Cat Kong book was ever released, which is kind of surprising. City Shrouded in Shadow. City Shrouded in Shadow is a survival game released exclusively in Japan for the PlayStation 4 in 2017. The game has you play as normal people trying to escape the city, as the city is being attacked by kaiju, and you're also being pursued by the Yakuza. Because I guess, even though there's like giant monsters, aliens, and robots destroying the city, I guess the Yakuza still need to make some money. Even when helpful kaiju and mechas show up to save the city, their colossal size ends up being a serious danger to the player, just as much as the monsters trying to destroy it. This game doesn't actually feature original kaiju, but instead a wide variety of licensed monsters, and mecha, including monsters from the Gamera franchise, the Eva units and angels from the Evangelion franchise, monsters and heroes from the Ultraman franchise, and mechs from the Patlabor franchise. And of course, Godzilla monsters show up as well, such as Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Kiru, Mothra, and Batra. Now you might be confused as to why this didn't get a Western release, as this seems like a pretty big deal. Well, it's because it's a licensing nightmare. There's a reason why most Japanese, anime kind of, crossover games never get released in the States or Europe. It's because it's just the amount of money that we have to go into, negotiating who owns who. It's not worth it in the end. But you can still play the game on a PS4 outside of Japan. It's just that there's no English subtitles, so unless you speak Japanese, good luck figuring out what the hell's going on. But I guess, in all fairness, I think most people are buying the game, not for the story, but to see Shinji battle Kiru or something. Godzilla Rage Against Time. Godzilla Rage Against Time is a 5-issue miniseries released by IDW from August 2016 to November of the same year, with each installment featuring Godzilla and/or other monsters showing up in various historical eras. These eras in history include 1274 in feudal Japan, where Godzilla shows up and battles Gigan and Megalon, who are under control by the Mongols. 218 BCE, where Godzilla encounters Hannibal and his army on their way to assault Rome. 1348, where Mothra and Megaguirus battle as Megaguirus is spreading the Black Death across Europe. Ancient Greece, where the Greek gods order the Hydra to kill Godzilla, but fail, and almost all the Greek gods are killed by Godzilla. Zeus, however, survives, becomes immortal after realizing he needs to learn by humans in order to become a good god, and lives the rest of his days in Pompeii. Which, yes, then Godzilla appears and destroys Pompeii. And finally, Godzilla and a bunch of classic kaiju live amongst dinosaurs in prehistoric times, where they then battle alien UFOs who drop off humanity. This last story is an obvious reference to the real-world conspiracy that aliens killed off the dinosaurs and are responsible for the creation of humanity. It's a crazy series that I highly recommend. Daikaiju Battle Royale. Daikaiju Battle Royale is a fan-made flash game that features a ton of Godzilla monsters to play as and battle with. As of right now, there's 68 playable monsters, and the game even includes some monsters you may not have expected to be in the game, like Toho's King Kong, Bagan, Zone Fighter, the second Shin Godzilla form, and even Mechagodzilla in his fake Godzilla disguise. It's an extremely popular fan game that can't be played normally anymore because Flash died. The only way to play it now is to download directly, so you can still play it, just not the original way. Godzilla vs. King Kong alternate endings. For decades, rumors went around that there were actually two different endings to King Kong vs. Godzilla. One in which Godzilla wins, and one where Kong wins. The Godzilla ending was played in Japan, while the Kong ending was played in America. And because these rumors went around for so long, it basically became fact to most people. But in reality, there was no alternate ending where Godzilla wins. The rumor started in 1963 by an American magazine called Spaceman, where an article states, two endings have been filmed, and if you see King Kong vs. Godzilla in Japan, Hong Kong, or some oriental sector of the world, Godzilla wins. On the other hand, in the USA and England, for instance, Kong wins. And because the Japanese version of King Kong vs. Godzilla wasn't released in the United States until 1985, most people simply took this at face value. The only truth to this rumor is that the Japanese version of the film, the characters in the film speculate that Godzilla might still be alive at the end of the film, followed by Godzilla and Kong's roars. While in the American version, they just say they hope to have seen the last of both monsters for a long time, followed by only Kong's roar. Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley. Godzilla vs. Charles Barkley is a 1992 commercial for Nike that was heavily promoted. The commercial featured Godzilla battling a giant Charles Barkley in a basketball game for the fate of Japan. Godzilla puts up a decent fight, but is ultimately defeated by Barkley, though they bonded over the course of the commercial, and by the end, they're friends, with Barkley even recruiting Godzilla into the Lakers basketball team. Posters, t-shirts, hats, and even a behind-the-scenes documentary were made in promotion for this commercial. There was even a comic book adaptation of the commercial, released in 1993 by Dark Horse. But this comic was a completely different story, as it takes place in California instead of Japan.
Lakers are looking for a big man.
Godzilla. Godzilla is a comedy series created by Toho that first began airing in 2019. It's a parody and celebration of the Godzilla franchise that features puppets, 2D animation, and live-action segments. The show is split up into multiple different stories, like Attention Godzilla, Go Jet Jaguar, Little and Gigan, The Dangerous Duo, Goodnight Monster, etc. And feature monsters from literally every version of Godzilla. Well, versions in Japan. I don't think the MonsterVerse Godzilla or Godzilla 98 have ever appeared in it. The show also received a manga adaptation and a live-action performance in 2019 at Godzilla Fest. The show has also been released on Toho's official North American Godzilla channel in English subtitles, so everyone can enjoy it now. The Godzilla comic is a Japanese anthology manga that was released on February 10th, 1990, and features 15 different stories written by different writers and art done by different people. The genres of the stories range from being serious, to comedy stories, to action stories, to romance stories, to Monster Warrior Godzilla. What's that story? Well, I'm giving that its own place in the iceberg because of how strange it is, so you're gonna have to wait. Unless you Google it. Don't do that, please. You'll spoil it for yourself. Some of these stories include having Godzilla battling Japanese idols who sing to calm him down, a parody of all the conference scenes in a lot of Godzilla films. Then there's Warning from G, which I will also give its own spot on the iceberg because of how strange it is. There's a story where Godzilla battles samurai in feudal Japan, and there's even a story where a cameraman falls in love with an alien attempting to control Godzilla. Overall, it's a crazy manga with some really great art, and I'm just going to assume really funny jokes too, because I don't understand any of it, because outside of some fan translations, the novel has never been officially translated.
Here's a makeup tip from Godzilla. To make a prominent nose look smaller, paint your eyes up to look bigger. Thanks, Godzilla.
近頃主人の帰りがなんだか早いんです。
あ、小島さん、
番組録画して自分だけのカラオケテープ作ったりして。
日本全国津々ラララ、今度は歌える G ビデオラララ
新登場。
すごい簡単、気持ちいい。
Oh no! There goes Cartoon Network. Go go Godzilla! Yeah yeah!
Godzilla 3D. Godzilla 3D, also known as Godzilla 3D to the Max, was a cancelled IMAX 3D Godzilla film that was in development from 2003 to 2009 that would have been released in the United States. It would have included a new kaiju called Deathla, who would be made up of hundreds of little kaiju and would destroy the Amazon rainforest, the Bahamas, and Denmark. What a strange collection of locations. Anyways, Godzilla would eventually show up and battle Deathla, who was now one kaiju, and chase him around the globe by using his power of flight using Godzilla vs. Hedorah. No, this is not a joke, they would have brought this power back. Probably should mention that this film was going to be directed by Yoshimitsu Beno, who directed Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Anyways, they'd eventually land in New York City during a blizzard, and Godzilla gets nearly killed, only for him to be given strength by hearing children across the world shouting for him to get back up. Then Godzilla would save the 9/11 monuments and force Deathla to leave Earth. Godzilla would then travel back to the rainforest, wink at the viewer, and then disappear. Can I just say, I don't really think 9/11 is really the kind of thing you want to be referencing in your Godzilla movie. Anyways, this film would be worked on with plot details being added and removed for roughly 6 years, before finally being cancelled. Though this film would actually inspire Legendary Pictures to make their own Godzilla film. So in a weird way, Godzilla defending the 9/11 monument and being cheered on by children across the globe gave us the Monsterverse. I should probably also mention that this film would have been like 60 minutes long, basically TV film length, but thrown in IMAX for some reason. Godzilla 98 is canon to GMK. In Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack, aka GMK, there's a brief scene where it's mentioned how Godzilla in this film might have been the monster responsible for the attack in New York City a few years ago, though this idea is thrown out immediately, as everyone agrees that that was just the Americans being stupid and thinking that that giant monster was Godzilla. Now, this film was released in 2001, so this was very clearly a reference to Godzilla in 1998. In fact, this line was put in the film just as a jab towards that movie. But in doing so, they unintentionally made a new timeline. Now the GMK timeline consists of the original Godzilla film, GMK, and Godzilla 98. Always, Sunset on 3rd Street 2. In the 2007 film, Always, Sunset on 3rd Street 2, there's a very brief scene where Godzilla appears entirely in CGI. This Godzilla, dubbed 3rd Street Godzilla, was based directly on his GMK version, though he uses roars from both the Millennia era and Godzilla 98. His cameo in the movie is notable for being the only time Godzilla appeared in a movie in the decade-long hiatus the franchise went through between Final Wars and Godzilla 2014. Dragon Ball. Godzilla and a bunch of his monster buddies have appeared in Dragon Ball's manga and anime. Now, I have no idea if these guys are canon or not to the franchise, as the only thing I know about and care about in Dragon Ball is my wife Android 18. So I have no idea. Maybe they are. Oh, they are apparently. Huh. Anyways, regardless if they're canon or not, Godzilla, Rodan, King Ghidorah, Bagan, and even Gamera all make appearances. Singular Point Kaiju Confusion. Prior to Godzilla Singular Point being released, many Godzilla fans took to Twitter to express how hyped they were that Toho was giving Titanosaurus and Gamera another shot to prove themselves after seeing them in the trailers. I mean, we haven't seen these guys since the Showa era, outside of some video games. So when the show came out, people were shocked to see that it wasn't actually Titanosaurus, but instead just a form of Godzilla. And that wasn't actually Gamera, but a new kaiju named Salunga. That, let's be real with ourselves here, will never show up in any Godzilla media ever again. Godzilla and Evangelion. Godzilla and Evangelion have a bit of a history together. And by history, I mean absolutely none. That was until the 2010s when Anno, the creator of Neon Genesis Evangelion, was hired to direct Shin Godzilla. Since then, this has led to multiple different crossovers between Shin Godzilla and Evangelion, though most of them are just marketing crossovers, including the sick-ass Eva Unit Shin Godzilla figure. I kind of want this. How much is... Oh. No. no, I'm not doing that. There's also this cool Evangelion Kiryu figure that's a model. I don't have the patience to build that. Though there was the Godzilla vs. Evangelion, the real 4D, which was a 17-minute-long film created for Universal Studios Japan, where Shinji, Asuka, and Rei show up in their Eva units to stop Shin Godzilla, who is just hyped as ever to be destroying Japan again. Wait, in this continuity, is Shin Godzilla an angel? Shin King Ghidorah an angel as well? Oh, speaking of that, during the battle, King Ghidorah shows up with a new design that's been fan-dubbed as Shin King Ghidorah, though that's just a fan name. He doesn't have an official name yet. And the Evas have to team up with Shin Godzilla to save the day. Godzilla NES Creepypasta. This is a really famous creepypasta, and is arguably the only video game creepypasta that's still taken seriously, except for maybe Ben Drowned. And I've never read it, or listened to a reading of it, and I'm not about to do either of those things. I know I should for the video, but I truly do not care. I don't care. Apparently it involves this dude playing this old Godzilla NES game, and like his dead girlfriend's soul's in it, along with some other people's souls. There's like some Lovecraftian entities in it or something. I have no idea, but it gave us this image, so I'm happy this creepypasta exists. Don't give me context for this. I won't read it. I just want to be completely ignorant to it. Zone Fighter. Zone Fighter was a series released from April 2nd, 1973 to September 24th, 1973, about the superhero Zone Fighter. And it's actually canon to the Showa era of Godzilla, as Godzilla himself would make guest appearances multiple times throughout its 26-episode run. King Ghidorah and Gigan would also appear in the show and be taken down by the efforts of Godzilla and Zone Fighter. In fact, Gigan's canonical death in the Showa era actually happens in Zone Fighter. The show takes place in between the events of Godzilla vs. Megalon and Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and is where Godzilla got its lesser-known title of Monster of Justice. If you want to watch the episodes of Zone Fighter where Godzilla and/or his monsters appear, they appear in episodes 4, 5, 6, 11, 15, 21, and 25. Skelly Turtle. AKA the Mystery Bones of Infant Island, Skelly Turtle is a very minor kaiju featured in Mothra vs. Godzilla. He just kind of appears in the background. Nobody acknowledges him, he just sits there looking around as people walk by him. So why was Skelly Turtle featured in the film at all? Well, people have speculated that its inclusion in the film was a reference to the 1962 Italian mockumentary Mondo Cane, or as it's translated into, It's a Dog's World, as that film features a turtle skeleton on the radioactive beaches of Bikini Atoll, which only became radioactive because of nuclear tests. In fact, Skelly Turtle even moves in the same way the skeleton moves in the wind. Since its original appearance, it's become a fan-favorite kaiju, and has had official merch of it made, and was even given a cameo in an issue, Godzilla Rulers of Earth, in 2014. King Caesar's Forgotten Ability. Strangely, in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, the black hole alien leader says, "We'll be in trouble if King Caesar brings other monsters to life." So, does King Caesar have the ability to bring kaiju back to life? Nobody knows. It's possible this was leftover dialogue from a scrapped plotline, but regardless, it's never been brought up again in any piece of Godzilla media since then. 90s Godzilla vs. King Kong. In the early 90s, the third installment of the Heisei series was originally going to be a rematch between Godzilla and King Kong. This was because Godzilla vs. Biollante, despite being amazing, didn't perform that well, and so Toho wanted to make their next installment as profitable as possible. All we know of this film's plot was that Kong was going to fall in love with a human scientist, who would later turn him into a cyborg to fight Godzilla. The film never happened for one major reason. Turner Entertainment, who held the King Kong IP, demanded royalties for use of the character. And so instead of paying for the monster, Toho was like, alright fine, we'll just do Godzilla vs. Mechani Kong, which would be Mechani Kong's first appearance since King Kong Escapes. But even though Toho owned Mechani Kong, because Mechani Kong was so similar to Kong's likeness, it would be very difficult to avoid Turner getting mad again. Not wanting to risk a potential lawsuit, they just decided to make Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. Manila takes over the Showa era. There's a popular fan theory that the Manila from Son of Godzilla is not the same Manila as the one from Destroy All Monsters. There's multiple reasons as to why people think this. For starters, Manila and Destroy All Monsters can no longer use his atomic breath, which Manila could use at the end of Son of Godzilla. The Manila and Destroy All Monsters is also significantly taller than the previous one. And finally, in the Showa era, Destroy All Monsters is actually the last film chronologically, as that film takes place 32 years after Son of Godzilla. So why hasn't he grown up to be like Godzilla in that time? Some say Manila died in between the events of these movies, and that the Manila and Destroy All Monsters is actually just a new Manila Godzilla found. But there's also another theory, that the Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Hedorah all the way to the end of the Showa era is actually Manila all grown up. The only real evidence for this is that the suit used to portray Godzilla in Son of Godzilla looks kind of battered and older than the other suits, so maybe in the film's canon he passed away shortly after the film, and then Manila grew up and took on his own Manila son. I'll leave a link in the description to a video explaining these theories in more detail, but as of right now, neither of these theories is confirmed. Godzilla Island. Godzilla Island was the name of a show that ran from October 6th, 1997 to September 30th, 1998, and yet had 256 3-minute episodes. The show used action figures by Bandai to portray the kaiju that appeared in the show, and tells the story of all the world's monsters living on an island called Godzilla Island, where they're monitored there by humans. The show featured a bunch of story arcs and even had a ton of show-exclusive kaiju that have remained exclusive to the show, like Medical Jet Jaguar, Firefighter Jet Jaguar, Black Mecha Godzilla, Neo Hedorah, Hyper Mecha King Ghidorah, and Super Special Space Godzilla High Grade Type 2. You know, the classic character of Super Special Space Godzilla High Grade Type 2. I mean, who doesn't love Super Special Space Godzilla High Grade Type 2? Wikizilla. Wikizilla is the name of the biggest wiki dedicated to Godzilla, Gamera, and other kaiju like them. They're known for being extremely knowledgeable about the franchises featured on the site, and even have a YouTube channel where they do showcase episodes about different kaiju, or just topics around kaiju media. They're one of the best channels out there to get Godzilla information from, so I highly recommend them. Here's some of my favorite videos from them. Godzilla Legend, the Osaka Fortress. Godzilla Legend, the Osaka Fortress was a cancelled 1979 Godzilla film. The film would take place in the year 2000, and have Godzilla being sedated in the Japan Trench. Meanwhile, a new super weapon called the Osaka Fortress would be created. It'd be this gigantic robotic computer designed to defend Japan against all threats. Though the robot would gain independence and begin a mission to exterminate all life on Earth. Kind of like Ultron before... Actually, no, Ultron came out way before this. I guess it's just kind of like a cliche and AI stories. Godzilla is then freed in order to battle the giant robot, and after defeating a bunch of smaller robotic minions, Godzilla battles the Osaka Fortress, but it's no use. It's too powerful. And so a bunch of humans infiltrate the robot and shut it down from the inside, which allows Godzilla to obliterate its motionless body. The film would be scrapped, though elements of it would later be used in the 1989 film Gunhead. Now there's even some sources that state that the film was even in consideration when making the third Heisei era film in the early 90s. Scrapped Godzilla game monsters. Like any fighting game, the Pipeworks Godzilla games and Godzilla PS4 have some scrapped fighters. For Godzilla Destroy All Monsters Melee, Jet Jaguar was supposed to be in the game, but Toho for whatever reason refused to allow them to use him, though they would let Pipeworks use Jet Jaguar in Godzilla Save the Earth and Godzilla Unleashed. The original 1954 Godzilla, along with Space Godzilla, were also planned for the game, but didn't get too far in development. And finally, Bagan, who was supposed to be a PlayStation 2 exclusive monster, but ultimately he was scrapped, despite being around 70% done. In Godzilla Save the Earth, Batra, Super Mecha Godzilla, Titanosaurus, Hedorah, and Varan were all intended to be in the game at some point. Bylante was also going to be in the game at one point, and was even completed 100%. Though because development on her was behind schedule, Atari couldn't get the license in time, so she went unused in the final game, though modders have actually been able to get her fully playable in the game. The Showa Mechagodzilla and Godzilla 1954 were also intended to be in the game as secret characters, but both were scrapped. And finally, the Star Falcon would have been an alternate form for Mongira, but was scrapped despite its model still being accessible through hacking. In Godzilla Unleashed, Hedorah, Mechani Kong, and Monster X were intended to be part of the Aliens faction in the game, while Bagan and Zilla were intended to be part of the Mutants faction. Yet another media where Bagan gets scrapped from. And finally, King Kong was intended to be in the game, and would have been part of the Earth Defenders faction along with Gamera, but both of them were scrapped because of licensing issues. And then finally, in Godzilla PS3/PS4, King Ghidorah from the Rebirth of Mothra 3 was planned to be in the game, but was replaced with the Heisei Ghidorah instead. King Kong and Zone Fighter were also seriously considered for the game, And finally, Monster X is going to be in the game, but was scrapped because of time constraints. Varan gets left behind. Poor Varan. Originally appearing in his own solo film in 1958, Varan has become a cult favorite kaiju, but since then has been constantly pushed to the side in favor of other kaiju. He has an extremely minor appearance in Destroy All Monsters, and was considered for several different movies, like GMK, The Return of King Ghidorah, Godzilla vs. Gigan, The Return of King Ghidorah, and even his own vs. Godzilla film titled Godzilla vs. Giant Monster Varan, which would have been the last installment of the Heisei era. Now, excluding GMK, all those movies I just mentioned were all cancelled. And despite all these scrapped appearances, he's at least appeared in some video games, comics, and novels over the years. So while he keeps getting pushed into obscurity, at least he's not like Bagan, who's just gone. I should also mention here that because Varan was scrapped from GMK, monster designer Fuyuki Shinada was saddened by Varan's removal, and when sculpting King Ghidorah's suit for the film, he actually sculpted Varan's facial fins onto King Ghidorah's suit. So, in a way, Varan still has a presence in the movie. Dangerville? Dangerville is a Godzilla YouTuber, though they sometimes delve into other franchises like Jurassic Park. They usually talk about lore from the Godzilla films, mostly the MonsterVerse, answer questions about the franchise, theorize stuff, and they even do the occasional what-if scenario. Like I said, they mostly talk about the MonsterVerse, but I still think they're a great watch if you're just a general Godzilla fan. Honestly, I probably should have highlighted them in the MonsterVerse Iceberg, but oh well, here we are. Here are some of my favorite videos from them. Godzilla and Anguirus talk. When King Kong speaks in sign language in Godzilla vs. Kong in 2021, people were surprised and thought this was the first time a kaiju has ever talked. Well, no. While Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla talking Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, you don't actually hear them, and it's just the fairies translating them. There is really only one example of a Godzilla kaiju talking, and that is in Godzilla vs. Gigan, where Godzilla and Anguirus talk. In the original Japanese cut of the film, we only see speech bubbles around them as they talk, but in the English dub, both Godzilla and Anguirus talk, and it's as good as you'd think it would be.
Something funny going on. You better check. Hey, Aquila, come on. There's a lot of trouble ahead.
Monster Island Buddies. Monster Island Buddies is a Godzilla YouTube channel most known for his long-running series, well, Monster Island Buddies. Though nowadays he spends most of his time reviewing Godzilla merch, like board games, video games, toys, etc. Though he'll occasionally throw in a comedic review of a movie in character as Orga, or a free-form podcast-like video where he'll talk about something within the Godzilla fanbase, or just the overall franchise. He's a pretty popular Godzilla YouTuber and does some great stuff. I highly recommend his channel. Here's some of my favorite videos from him. Who Will Know? Who Will Know is a song composed by Shiru Sagasu for Shin Godzilla. The song is notable for, well, being incredible, but also because the song's lyrics have been theorized to be from Godzilla's perspective. Basically, the song is about how Godzilla is kind of just in constant pain, shouldn't even exist in the first place, wants to die, and just overall, Godzilla's just not really having a good day. He's just kind of having a really bad couple days. I think that really, summarizes the entirety of Shin Godzilla. Godzilla has a couple of bad days. That's a fair description of the movie. Up from the Depths is a Godzilla YouTuber, most known for his gigantic kaiju review compilations, where he puts together all of his reviews for certain franchises, like Godzilla, Mothra, King Kong, Gamera, etc. He doesn't really upload too much anymore, but his giant backlog of videos is really great, and I highly recommend watching all of his reviews. Here's some of my favorite videos from him. The 2020 Godzilla Cinematic Universe. In 2018, it was confirmed by Toho that they'd be creating their own Godzilla Cinematic Universe starting production in 2020, after Godzilla vs. Kong was released. The announcement quote reads, "After 2021, we're thinking of a potential strategy that releases Godzilla movies uninterrupted at a rate of every 2 years, although there is a preference for a yearly place as well. The future of the series and its forwarding developments are very conscious of the method shared universe. Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, etc. could all share a single world view, much like the Marvel movie where Iron Man and the Hulk can cross over with each other. It is said that each movie can be a possible film production, where any of them could lead a film of their own as a titular character. This cinematic universe has been nicknamed The World of Godzilla, but it hasn't happened yet because of the pandemic pushing Godzilla vs. Kong back a year, and who knows, Toho might be rethinking the cinematic universe, as as there's a massive push for the MonsterVerse to continue. Ideally, both franchises could be released at the same time though, kinda like how Joker and the Matt Reeves Batman trilogy were produced and released as the DCEU was still going on, or Godzilla films for the last decade, since Shin Godzilla and the anime trilogy have been released as the MonsterVerse was, happening. Big Action Bill. Big Action Bill is a YouTube channel that is probably the most well known for reviewing Godzilla films, though he also does videos about anime like My Hero Academia. These reviews are oftentimes over 20 minutes long and go into the history of the film's creation, the aftermath of its release, its production history, and of course the film itself. They're extremely entertaining to watch, as some of these reviews he's only watching these films for the first time, so you get like a newcomer's perspective into the franchise. He hasn't covered the entire franchise yet, though he's slowly going through them all. I highly recommend you check out his channel. Here's some of my favorite videos from him. Godzilla Save the Earth Melee. Godzilla Save the Earth Melee is a mod for Godzilla Save the Earth that's being created for PC. It incorporates elements from all three of the Pipework Godzilla games, with new gameplay mechanics, textures, monsters, UI, etc. I'll leave a link to the mod's Twitter account and YouTube channel so you can stay up to date on updates. The many different continuities. So people who aren't well informed about the Godzilla franchise usually think that all the Godzilla films, or at least most of them, share the same continuity. This is extremely wrong, as there's the Showa era, the Heisei era, Shin Godzilla, the MonsterVerse, the anime trilogy, Singular Point, GMK, and of course the Millennium trilogy, which is like 6 different continuities. The point is, there's a lot of timelines, and that's not even going into like the micro continuities.
Dive, dive, dive! Godzilla heads for the murky depths of Cartoon Network for a little R&R. Await his return, mortal.
Godzilla's hiding, and it's up to you to find him. Just buy a medium or larger drink. If you find a Godzilla, use your decoder to reveal what you've won.
Uh-oh. I think I need a bigger box.
Remain still, Cartoon Network viewers. Do not provoke Godzilla.
Hedorah's scrapped fight in Final Wars. Hedorah was originally going to have a much larger role in Godzilla Final Wars, where he'd battle Godzilla for a lot longer than he does in the actual film. There was also supposed to be a scene in which Hedorah was going to attack the island of Odaba, in a scene that parodied the Japanese comedy series Bayside Shakedown. Because of both of these scenes being scrapped, the crew of the film were upset that Hedorah had been basically almost entirely scrapped from the movie, so they compensated by including footage of Hedorah attacking Tokyo over the ending credits. 17 years later, Hedorah would finally face off against Godzilla again in the short film Godzilla vs. Hedorah, where the Final Wars Hedorah and Final Wars Godzilla suits were used to portray the battle. This short was made to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Godzilla vs. Junior Godzilla. Godzilla vs. Junior Godzilla is a cancelled Godzilla film that would have served as the final installment of the Heisei era. As the name suggests, the plot of the film would have been about Godzilla and his son battling to the death for whatever reason. G-Force would then show up and actually kill Godzilla. This would be one of the very rare times in which the military was actually able to kill Godzilla. The film also would have included a new kaiju named Baraboreoi, who was a monster from another cancelled Godzilla film titled Godzilla vs. Baraboreoi. I don't know how. I'm sorry. Love Hina. In the extremely average romantic comedy anime Love Hina, released in 2000, there's an episode that just has Godzilla randomly showing up on the news, and the cast of characters don't really seem that fazed by it, implying that this is like a normal occurrence. We later see them inside one of Godzilla's footprints, so I guess Love Hina takes place in one of the Godzilla timelines. If I had to guess, probably the Showa era. God Godzilla. God Godzilla is an unofficial Godzilla variation that appeared in the worst case invasion of Earth, at Ultra 7 Dojin. It's an enormous Godzilla variation with giant wings that form a cape. He's also, like, constantly glowing. Just think of this Godzilla as the ultimate Godzilla, even more so than Planet of the Monsters Godzilla. Now, for whatever reason, people often mistake God Godzilla for being an official Godzilla variation, despite that not even being remotely true. For those that don't know, doujins are fan-made mangas, so Toho had nothing to do with its creation. It's still a really cool design, but it's not official in any sense, so don't expect to see any Godzilla media ever referencing this form. Original Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. The original version of Ebirah, Horror of the Deep was titled Operation Robinson Crusoe, King Kong vs. Ebirah, in which, yes, King Kong would star instead of Godzilla. This explains why in the film Godzilla acts really out of character. For instance, he gets his strength from electricity, which is something that Kong did in Godzilla vs. Kong, has an attraction to a human woman, and attacks Mothra, which normally wouldn't be out of character for him. But the last time Godzilla met Mothra, they were allies. Well, Kong has never met her, so it explained why he'd attack her. Break Mass Productions, who had given Toho the license to Kong, had given them the license so that they would make a tie-in film with their cartoon, The King Kong Show. And this was supposed to be that film, but they felt the movie didn't follow the show closely enough, so Toho replaced Kong with Godzilla, and then they made King Kong Escapes the next year. Godzilla Jr. equals Godzilla 2000. A very common misconception in the Godzilla fanbase is that the Godzilla featured in Godzilla 2000 is actually Godzilla Jr. from the Heisei era, all grown up. While an interesting idea on paper, and one that I'm actually a fan of, it's just not even remotely true, as Godzilla 2000 isn't canon to the Heisei series, and is instead a direct sequel to the 1954 film. Side note, Godzilla 2000's design is probably one of my favorite Godzilla designs, period. Just look at this dude. Shin Godzilla 2. There's a very common misconception in the West that Shin Godzilla 2 was greenlit by Toho, but was ultimately cancelled either for the anime trilogy or the potential cinematic universe they want to make. This just isn't the case. While many cast members of Shin Godzilla have stated that they're interested in making one, Toho has never announced a Shin Godzilla 2. Anno has even stated that Toho probably wouldn't even let him do a second Shin Godzilla, as there'd be a lot of difficulties. So no, Shin Godzilla 2 isn't happening. Could it happen? Maybe, but I highly doubt it. Singular Point cameos. During the credits of each episode of Godzilla Singular Point, there's an insane amount of cameos shown off. Seriously, pretty much every Godzilla film is referenced. Not only do we see King Caesar, Manda, Mothra, Biollante, Anguirus, Monsterverse Rodan, Kiru, Jagar, Hedorah, Kubunga, and Megalon, but we also see the human casts of Godzilla Final Wars, 2000 Millennium, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, the original 1954 film, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, Zone Fighter, Shin Godzilla, Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, GMK, All Monsters Attack, Godzilla vs. Gigan, Godzilla vs. Hedorah, and even Godzilla 98. It's honestly insane how many references they were to throw into the end credits. Regardless how you feel about Singular Point, you can tell the people behind it really loved the Godzilla franchise. Transforming Bullet Train Robot Shinkalion. This is an anime series based on a model train franchise of the same name. In this anime, monsters start attacking the world, so a bunch of kids pilot mechs that can turn into trains to save the world. It's your standard Saturday morning mecha anime. I can't really vouch for its quality, I've never seen it, and nor will I. But what's notable about the franchise is that in the 2019 film, Transforming Bullet Train Robot Shinkalion, the movie The Marvelous Fast Affleck X that comes from the future, what a fucking mouthful, one of the characters battles Godzilla. This Godzilla has been dubbed as Snow Godzilla by most fans, and features an original design for the movie, though he reuses his original roars. He even gets to battle a train version of Ava Unit 1 piloted by Shinji. Wait, what? Asuka and Rei are there too? There's a monster that's just a combination of all the angels from Evangelion? What the fuck? What is this franchise? Anyways, what's cool about this Godzilla is he has new, unique abilities, and he just kind of shows up, slaps some mechs around, and then just bails immediately. He doesn't really stick around for very long. Wait, Hatsune Miku is also in this? Godzilla TV. Godzilla TV is a partially lost Godzilla series that ran from October 4th, 1999 to March 31st, 2000. It was a 5-minute long show that aired every weekday, and with each day, the episode's format would be different. Monday was Godzilla Theater, which would just show clips from past Godzilla films. Tuesday was Godzilla Expedition Team, in which a child reporter visits filming locations from the Godzilla franchise. Wednesday was Godzilla Laboratory, where comedians answer Godzilla-related questions. Thursday was World of Godzilla, where children from around the world learn about Godzilla. And Friday was Breaking Godzilla 2000 News, where news, images, and cast reviews from Godzilla 2000 would be shown off. Because it was a promotional campaign for a movie and had such short episodes, it was never rebroadcasted or released on DVD, VHS, or anything. So scenes from the show are very rare and hard to come by. In fact, it seems that most of the show was completely lost. Shin Godzilla's first appearance. So you might think that Shin Godzilla's first appearance on screen was his film Shin Godzilla. Well, you'd think that, wouldn't you? That just makes sense. Well, in actuality, no. This was his second appearance on screen. His first appearance was in episode 901 of Crayon Shin-chan, a show that began airing in 1992. 900 episodes, holy hell. Wait, that was in 2016. How many episodes does it have now? 1,077? My god. Anyways, this show is a slice-of-life comedy, is extremely popular and famous in Japan. Shin Godzilla's appearance was in a segment titled It's Crayon Shin-chan vs. Shin Godzilla, where the two battle to the death. And by death, I mean Shin-chan jumps into Shin Godzilla's mouth and farts into his mouth, shrinking Shin Godzilla to the size of a small lizard. I don't want to talk about it. What's interesting about this, though, is that because this was made in promotion for Shin Godzilla, they actually changed some things about Shin Godzilla in order to avoid spoiling the movie. For example, he fires blue atomic breath instead of his purple beam from the movie. Godzilla Online. Godzilla Online was a multiplayer game created by Mythic Entertainment in 1998 that took place shortly after the events of the 1998 film. The game has you taking the role of one of 4 classes with their own objectives. First, there's the soldier who comes with assault rifles and rocket launchers, and their main goal is to kill all the baby Godzillas. Then there's the scientists, whose main goal is to take blood samples from baby Godzillas, and has futuristic weapons to battle against the soldiers and baby Godzillas. Then there's the baby Godzillas, whose goal is to slaughter everyone that's just, not a baby Godzilla. And finally, the reporter class, that doesn't actually fight, but instead just watches the fight. And you gain points from watching the 3 factions clash, while also avoiding being killed by any of the 3 factions. Don't really know why you'd want to play as them, but whatever, I guess. The game had 5 multiplayer maps and 5 game modes, with your standard free-for-all team deathmatch and capture the flag. There were also modes like Escape from NYC, where you have to kill all the baby Godzillas before they escape, and Last Man, where it was basically just free-for-all, but you had 2 lives. Godzilla and the Martians. Godzilla and the Martians was an unlicensed Godzilla game created for the ZX Spectrum 16K/48K. In the game, Godzilla has to climb up a building to get to a girl by jumping over Martians and holes in the ground. The Martians have also poisoned the oxygen on Earth so they can make it compatible with their own planet, so you also gotta worry about that too. The description of the game reads, "The Martians have invaded, destroying the molecular structure of Earth's atmosphere to make it compatible with their own planet. The girl of your dreams is trapped at the top of a building site, but for the moment protected from the evil invaders by a friendly dinosaur. You must rescue her before the oxygen is totally absorbed. Martians kill, so do the man traps which you must leap. Superhumans only can play this game." It's a very bold declaration. Godzilla vs. Chaos. Godzilla vs. Chaos was a scrapped Godzilla film that would have served as the final entry in the Heisei era. Feels like there's been a dozen of these scrapped final Heisei films, but anyways, this film would have been about a 3-way battle between Godzilla, Godzilla Jr. I really don't know why so many of these plots include plots where Godzilla just kind of like fights his son to death, but anyways, and the alien kaiju Chaos, who would be using the bioenergy from the ghost of the original Godzilla as a weapon. Outside of that, nothing is really known about the scrapped film, though Chaos might actually have come from a different dimension and not space, so there's that information, I guess. Because there's so little information about it, I'm just going to assume that the chaos in this movie was actually just perfect chaos from Sonic Adventure, and there's not a goddamn thing you can do to stop me. Shin Godzilla VR. Everyone, including myself, complains about how there hasn't been a console Godzilla game since 2014. Well, guess what, babies and me? Stop whining. We got one in 2016 called Shin Godzilla Special Demo Content. That's VR. Exclusively released in PlayStation VR, you play as like a random a dude, I guess, just chilling out in the ruins of Tokyo when you see Shin Godzilla slowly walking towards you. Eventually, Shin Godzilla stomps, causes some rocks to be flung at you, and you die. And that's the end of the game. Alright, so it's not really what people want with a console Godzilla game, though a survival horror Godzilla game does sound pretty dope, and it can be completed in just over 2 minutes. I guess we can all go back to begging someone, anyone, to release a new console Godzilla fighting game. Please, anyone. I'll take any company. Okay, maybe not that one. Or that one. Or that one. Or that one. Or that. Scrapped Final Wars Kaiju. Godzilla Final Wars features pretty much every single Godzilla monster to date. Well, I mean most of them. But did you know that there were actually 4 kaiju that were scrapped from the film? Originally, King Ghidorah, Gorosaurus, Mechagodzilla, I don't know which one, they just say Mechagodzilla, and the giant octopus were going to be in the movie. Ghidorah was replaced with Monster X, while Gorosaurus was replaced with Zilla. I don't really know why they couldn't have had Gorosaurus and Zilla in the movie, but whatever, I guess. Meanwhile, Mechagodzilla and the Giant Octopus were both scrapped with no real replacements. Godzilla vs. Bambi. Godzilla vs. Bambi is a 1969 animated short film created entirely by Marv Newland. The short film is only a minute and 30 seconds and tells the story of Bambi, who's just, eating some grass when suddenly Godzilla stomps on him, killing him instantly. The narrator of the movie then thanks Tokyo for their help in obtaining Godzilla for the film, and it just ends there. The short received critical acclaim and would even be included in the VHS release of Godzilla in 1985. There were also two sequels to the short. One in 1976 called Bambi's Revenge, where it's revealed Bambi is alive and blows up Godzilla's foot with some dynamite, causing Godzilla to bounce away. And Son of Bambi Meets Godzilla in 1999, where Godzilla 98, I think, tries to kill the son of Bambi, but keeps on failing until Bambi pulls out a missile launcher and kills him. The last one's also in 1990s CGI, so it's a treat. Monster Planet of Godzilla. Monster Planet of Godzilla was an attraction at select theme parks in Japan from 1994 to 1998. It featured Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra battling it out. It's a fairly simple simulation ride with some fun dialogue and effects, but what's notable about it is that a decent chunk of it is lost. You see, this short was released as a bonus feature for the Japanese exclusive Godzilla Final box set and the 5-disc Blu-ray of the 2014 film, which was also exclusive to Japan. So it can still be watched, and you can probably find like a bootleg of it online, but a certain character has been removed entirely from the movie, and because of that, every single scene with that character was also removed. So who was this mystery character? Hello Kitty. You see, one of the theme parks the ride was at was Harmony Land, whose mascot is Hello Kitty. So when they filmed the short, they filmed scenes where Hello Kitty would help out in flying jets and attacking the kaiju. Because of licensing issues, every single scene with Hello Kitty in it has been removed from the home release of the short, making all these scenes lost media. Godzilla vs. Commerical. Originally, instead of GMK, the 25th Godzilla film was going to be Godzilla vs. Commerical, the giant mantis kaiju from Son of Godzilla and All Monsters Attack. Ultimately, the idea was scrapped though, due to an insect-like kaiju like Megaguirus already being featured in the previous year's Godzilla film, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. Lost in Time. In Godzilla King of the Monsters issue 9, released in 1996 by Dark Horse Comics, Godzilla is sent through time by the scientist Professor Mason in order to loot the past by having Godzilla strike past disasters like Pompeii, the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, the future, the Titanic, and the 1588 Spanish Armada of all things. What follows is a storyline of G-Force traveling through time to stop Godzilla from altering history. And yes, this includes a scene in which Godzilla attacks the Titanic. This is a real comic panel. I'm a big fan of it. It reminds me a lot of that one Italian Titanic film where a giant octopus saves the Titanic, but I guess in this case it destroys it. I highly recommend this story arc because it's pretty insane. It goes on from issues 9 to 12 if you're interested. Though honestly, I suggest just reading the entire Dark Horse Comics run. It's pretty good. Commodore Plus 4. Godzilla for the Commodore Plus 4 is an unlicensed Godzilla game released in Hungary. It's an endless runner like that Google Dinosaur game, only instead of being a T-Rex running in the desert, you're Godzilla, I think, running through a cemetery, being attacked by UFOs. Also, unlike the Google T-Rex game, Godzilla can attack enemies by using fire breath or chomping down on some UFOs. Also, there's literally no sound in the game outside of the title screen, and whenever Godzilla gets hit by an object, he makes this sound. I hate it. Hedorah vs. Medora. Alright, so this is a pretty sad entry. Yoshimitsu Banno was a Japanese director and producer, well known for directing Godzilla vs. Hedorah, and for the rest of his life after its release, he kept trying to get Toho to create another film with Hedorah in it. Ultimately, we'd see Hedorah again in Final Wars, but he wanted a film that focused on the kaiju, so much so that he proposed Godzilla vs. Hedorah 2 in the 70s, where Godzilla would battle a second Hedorah in Africa. But ultimately, it was rejected. Years later, he tried again and asked Godzilla fans around the world to help him create a new film titled Hedorah vs. Medora, in which Hedorah would battle a green version of himself named Medora, who was trying to save the environment. Sadly, he'd pass away in 2017, leaving this film unmade, and it's very unlikely that Toho or Any studio will try to make this film happen. Cancelled NES Rodan game. In 1990, there was an ad that said a Rodan game was coming to the Nintendo Entertainment System. This ad would show up in multiple different magazines, where each one stated that Rodan was Godzilla's arch enemy, despite at this point them only fighting once, very briefly, and since then has been shown to be allies with Godzilla ever since. Anyways, the game was advertised for about a year afterwards, where it was described as being a semi-sequel to the NES Godzilla game. However, the game was cancelled because Toho felt that a game under Rodan's name wouldn't sell as well as a Godzilla game, and apparently most of the game's assets were ported into Godzilla 2, or The Monsters.
Godzilla's loose. Ah! He's gonna eat these commercials. The humanity of it all. Calm him, Cartoon Network. Soothe the beast. Godzilla, king of all thunder lizards, shall return. He's gone to stuff his face with Smurfs again. You're gonna get fat, Godzilla.
Godzilla vs. Ghost Godzilla. Godzilla vs. Ghost Godzilla is yet again another cancelled final entry in the Heisei era. This time around, Godzilla would battle the ghost of the original Godzilla from the 1954 film, who would eventually possess Godzilla Jr. and grow into a reincarnated version of the 1954 Godzilla. Anguirus also intended to be in the movie, and had some really strange concept art of him made. There was even a draft of the film in which Ghost Godzilla possessed Anguirus, creating a new monster named Godzirus. There was even another draft in which Ghost Godzilla would possess a new kaiju named Baragurus, who was basically just a combination of Anguirus and Bagan. Ultimately, this film was cancelled for multiple reasons, with the main one being that Toho felt a third Godzilla film in a row, where Godzilla battles a clone or a variant of himself, would just be too much. Though we would eventually see Ghost Godzilla in some forms. For example, in GMK, Godzilla in that film could be described as a ghost-like Godzilla, and in the 2010s, a Funko Pop of Ghost Godzilla was released, based on concept art made for him. Dream Challenge. Godzilla appears in Sukogawa. Dream Challenge, Godzilla appears in Sukogawa, is a 14-minute short film released in 2019, exclusively at the I'm Not Pronouncing That museum. It's a rather simple short film with Godzilla just going on a rampage through Sukogawa, Japan, and battles laser technology developed by the JSDF. Because of it only being available to view in one place, it easily could become potential lost media in the future, but as of right now, it's just rare media. Go Godman. Go Godman was a show that ran from 1972 to 1973, with 33 episodes. And like with Zone Fighter, the show, Go Godman, also shares continuity with the Showa era of Godzilla. At least maybe? Godzilla himself never actually shows up to help or battle the superhero Godman, but instead, Gabara and Gorosaurus show up in the show at points. Gorosaurus even ends up dying in Godman, though Gabara manages to survive the events of the show and appears in the sequel series, Go Green Man. No, not that Green Man. God, I wish. This Green Man. This show lasted for 52 episodes and aired from 1973 to 1974. In this sequel series, the superhero Green Man battles and ends up killing Gabara after Gabara literally eats a child whole. No, seriously, Gabara vored a child. What's even stranger is that in Go Green Man battles an evil version of Manila, who was deployed to Japan by the series' main antagonist in order to obtain the blood of young children. This Manila is somehow even younger than the main Manila, as he uses a pacifier. Green Man couldn't even bring himself to kill Evil Manila. But don't worry, Evil Manila was then executed by his master for failing to obtain the blood children shortly afterwards. One final thing of note is that every single suit featured in the show that was a returning kaiju, like Gorosaurus, Manila, or Gabara, was heavily damaged beyond repair, so in the show they look pretty bad, and you can tell that the suits are slowly falling apart. Resurrection of Godzilla. King of the Monsters, Resurrection of Godzilla, was a cancelled Godzilla film from 1977 that would have been the first Godzilla film since the end of the Showa era. This film would see Godzilla attacking a nuclear power plant that was being occupied by terrorists. Outside of that, not much else is known about the film, outside of Godzilla being the main villain and the only real giant kaiju of the film. Though the monster Shakurus would also be in the film as well, but would be reimagined as being like a giant tick-like creature. It's also been reported that very minor elements of this film would later be reused for Godzilla 1985. Though I can't stress this enough, very minor elements. Shin Arima. This is undoubtedly the strangest piece of lost Godzilla media. In 2016, a crossover game between Shin Godzilla and the Arima Kinen horse racing event was released for free online. However, it wasn't up for very long, and you can't actually play it anymore. The game has you racing horses against lions, gorillas, penguins, pandas. It's really weird. Until then, Shin Godzilla appears at the end of the game, and you have to race him a couple times. During these races, Shin Godzilla will attempt to kill you with his purple laser breath and throwing rubble at you. If you beat Shin Godzilla in all the races, you end up killing him by pumping blood-freezing coolant into his body like in the movie. So yes, Shin Godzilla battled some random horse jockey and lost. I guess Shin Godzilla's not as tough as people like to make him out to be. Tokyo 1960. In 1957, an edited version of the original Godzilla film was released in the Philippines, under the title Tokyo 1960. It had new scenes added into the film with Filipino actors, similar to what happened when Godzilla was released in the United States. However, no footage of this version of the film has ever surfaced, and because of the humidity and heat in the Philippines destroying most of the country's early physical films, it's unlikely this film is still around. In fact, only 37% of every single film ever made in the Philippines still exists. 1999 King Ghidorah film. Very little is known about this project, but at some point in the late 90s, a King Ghidorah film was planned for a 1999 release. It wouldn't be connected to the Heisei era, the upcoming Millennium era, or the Rebirth of Mothra trilogy. It'd be its own standalone film in its own continuity. But ultimately the film would never see the light of day, and Toho then decided to incorporate Ghidorah into the Rebirth of Mothra 3 instead. Tokyo is a fine place. In the 1957 Toho film, Tokyo is a Fine Place, there's a baseball team called the Tokyo Anguirus, and the team's uniform even includes a shoulder patch with Anguirus' head on it. I really wish sports teams in real life named themselves after kaiju. Like imagine the New York Reptilicus, the Green Bay Gabaras, the Boston Mothras, the Los Angeles Kongs, Tampa Bay Hedorah, alright, you get it, it'd be pretty cool. Godzilla Micro Battle Playsets. During the 90s, Trendmasters, riding the trend of tiny toys like Mighty Max, released 7 different battle playsets for Godzilla. These toys were small battleground playsets inside of Godzilla's head. Then you would open Godzilla's head like you were performing brain surgery, or I guess in this case like a dentist trip gone wrong, because you're like ripping the dude's jaw open. Anyways, now you got a little mini Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York City, Washington DC, etc., to destroy. You even got landmarks you can destroy, like the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, the Twin Towers, the Washington Monument, etc. I feel like I said something bad there. Anyways, it didn't stop just Godzilla because 2 of the sets were held in different heads, like Mechagodzilla 2's head and Mecha King Ghidorah's body, I guess. The sets came with tiny versions of kaiju like Godzilla, Rodan, Mechagodzilla, etc., and you could use your imagination to destroy all sorts of things, like the Pentagon, the White House, the Capitol Building, the Twin Tower. Overall, it was probably a lot of fun to play with as a kid. Side note, according to the micro-continuity that is the Battle Playsets universe, the Lincoln Memorial has like a missile silo right underneath him. So I guess Honest Abe is hiding a bunch of missiles inside of him. That, and I guess Lincoln Lookers. Godzilla Destroy All Monsters. Godzilla Monster Battle was a 2D fighting game released for the Super Famicom in 1994, and for what I know is a pretty great game, and served as the sequel to Godzilla Battle Legends. It was so good and popular that Toho had announced an American version of the game called Godzilla Destroy All Monsters, that was planned to be released in April of 1995. However, this never actually ended up happening. This is very strange because in the May 1995 issue of Nintendo Power, there was actually a review of the game that claimed it was released in April despite it never actually coming out. So it's clear that an American version of the game does exist, or at least did exist. As to why it was never released, nobody knows. Eternal Linkage. Eternal Linkage was a mobile RPG developed by Jupit. It's set in a fantasy world, and I don't think it got a Western release. I think it's also exclusive to Japan because everything I found about it's just pretty much all in Japanese. And it also might be dead because I can't find a single video of it that was like uploaded in the last like 3 years. Also, the game doesn't even have like a Wikipedia page, so it's like even the most basic of research is impossible. Yeah, I think it's dead. But anyways, the game is most well known by Godzilla fans for its crossover with the Godzilla anime trilogy, where Godzilla Earth, Mothra, Shin Godzilla for some reason, and a bunch of Surubuns show up alongside the cast of the anime trilogy. The event was fairly popular, I believe, though I guess it didn't save the game from falling into obscurity. Godzilla's funeral. In 1995, shortly after finishing up the film Godzilla vs. Destoroyah, Toho held a real-life funeral for the King of the Monsters. This was done because, well, sure, Godzilla died in the film, but also because it intended to start a long hiatus for the franchise, similar to how at the end of the Showa era, there was a long gap between films. Ultimately, that didn't really happen, but I'll get to that later. But yes, in 1995, there was a funeral held for Godzilla. They even had a little toy of him melting down, which is kind of messed up. Like, imagine you get shot to death, and at your funeral, your family puts a figure of a dude getting shot next to your coffin. Like, just kind of like, nope, this is how we went, this is how we went, this is how we died. The Wolfman vs. Godzilla. Wolfman vs. Godzilla is a Godzilla fan film that started production in 1983. Yep, it's still going on. Filming for the project is complete, but for whatever reason, the film has never been completed. According to Shizu Nakajima, the film's director and producer, there exists roughly 10 hours of raw footage for the film. As for the film's plot, we know that it's about a werewolf that grows to a kaiju-level size after becoming irradiated, and eventually battles Godzilla, who is apparently the lesser of the two evils compared to the Wolfman, and so, like, the people of Japan root for him. Despite the film being in production hell since the early 80s, information of this film in the West was almost non-existent until 2012, when a montage of effects for the film and behind-the-scenes photos were shown off at G-Fest that year. Also, Nicolas Cage was given a signed poster of the film for some reason. The cancelled Godzilla 1998 toy line. While the marketing for the 1998 Godzilla film was massive, the marketing for its sequel cartoon series barely existed at all. Godzilla 98 also had countless toys and figures for the film made, but the cartoon series had very little, if any at all, ever released. You see, the animated series was actually going to have a complete toy line, but was cancelled mid-production. Walmart is actually to blame for its cancellation, as Walmart basically decided what went to shelves and what didn't. And they made the decision not to sell any more Godzilla toys after the first wave of 98 figures rolled out. However, the figures were still prototyped, so in an effort to make a little extra money, and or just to get rid of them, they held a contest with the animated series toys as prizes. So basically, the entire toy line was cancelled because Walmart was like, nah, we're good. Though you can still actually buy Godzilla the Animated Series prototypes online, but they're gonna cost you a hell of a lot of money. 1988 animated Godzilla film. In the late 80s, it was reported by Variety that Toho was planning production for an animated Godzilla film to be released in 1988. This was because apparently a quote-unquote state-of-the-art live-action Godzilla film would be far too expensive to produce. Pre- and post-production of the film would be done in the United States, while the animation would be done in Japan. So yes, this would have been a US-Japan co-production. Ultimately, the film would never end up being made, and the only plot details we know about it come from an article titled Godzilla's American Cousin, written in the 45th issue of Film Facts, where it mentions that the animated Godzilla film would have had the King of the Monsters go up against one of the Gargantuas from the 1966 film War of the Gargantuas. Star Godzilla. Star Godzilla is a cancelled 1980 Godzilla film that was going to be produced by Hong Kong's first distributors, and was announced in an issue of Variety with this poster. The poster features Godzilla, King Kong, and Anguirus battling UFOs and military vehicles, with the tagline, "Where the old world and the new world meet." However, because they didn't get the rights to use any of these monsters, Toho basically threatened legal action that led to the film's cancellation. Weirdly enough, the poster actually uses art lifted from the ads for the 1976 King Kong film, and a fake review for the film was released on April 1st, 1998, as an April Fool's joke, by Stomp Tokyo Video Reviews, where they used screenshots for the 1986 film One Crazy Summer and a doctored image for the 1975 film Inframan to represent the film. Lost Gamera and Godzilla fight. For 10 days during March of 1970, Gamera battled several kaiju at Expo 70 as a promotion for the film Gamera vs. Jiger, which was released that same month and was also a promotion for Expo 70. So it's like a circle of promotion they got going on there. Anyways, one of the kaiju Gamera battled during the expo was Godzilla, which means yes, an official Godzilla and Gamera fight took place at a children's event during Expo 70, and it's lost to time. Very little footage and photos of it actually exist, though we do know that Godzilla and Gamera were joined by Gorosaurus, Jiger, Manila, and Space Gauss. And finally, we know there's an audio recording of at least one of the events that still exists. Godzilla vs. Deep Sea Life. Godzilla vs. Deep Sea Life is not a canceled Godzilla film about Godzilla just slaughtering every single species that lives in the deep part of the ocean, but is instead a canceled Godzilla film that would have been, yes, another final entry to the Heisei era. All we know about this canceled film is that Godzilla would have battled a new dragon-like kaiju that came from the bottom of the ocean, and that both kaiju would eventually be attacked by G-Force with the Oxygen Destroyer. Chibi Godzilla. Chibi Godzilla is a sub-series in the Godzilla franchise that's aimed directly at very young children. It's a fairly big marketing campaign in Japan, with numerous books being made, a web anime being made, theater shorts, merchandise, meet and greets, and songs being made for it. And yes, I said meet and greets. There are actually events in Japan, well, I don't know about now with COVID, but before COVID, there were events where children could meet a real-life Chibi Godzilla. Side note, the Rodan Chibi reminds me a lot of that one kid's show, the Paz show, if anyone else remembers that. Anyways, there's not really much lore here to dissect, outside of the fact that it confirms that in canon, Godzilla was a crybaby when he was a kid, and that he had a human owner, which is interesting. Also, there's a music video that features a barely clothed man dancing with Chibi Godzilla. Yes, I'm aware that he is like a famous comedian in Japan, and like dancing almost naked is like his shtick, and that, he's like a pop culture icon over there, but I'm not really a fan of this. I don't think this is very good. Please step away from the Godzilla and the children. Mecha Mothra. Originally, the ending to the Heisei era Godzilla vs. Mothra film would have had Mothra being killed by Godzilla. This would lead into a cancelled sequel that would have had Mothra come back to life as a cyborg. Sadly, there's no images of what Mecha Mothra would have looked like, or even if she'd be the enemy or ally to Godzilla. All we have is a description of her saying that she looked more like a dragonfly than a moth. Liopleurodon. So in Godzilla Tokyo SOS, you might recall the scene in which the corpse of Chemoboss appearing, revealing that Godzilla had actually killed him right before the film began. Well, originally, that wasn't going to be him, but instead, Gamera. But, that would have had some serious copyright issues and probably piss off a lot of Gamera fans, so they just went with another turtle kaiju. But before even Gamera, this creature was going to be a Liopleurodon, which isn't really a kaiju, but instead a real-life prehistoric creature that lived during the Jurassic period. Now, I have no evidence for this next part, but I don't care, I'm speculating. It's possible that the Liopleurodon was chosen originally because of Walking with Dinosaurs, as that had been released just 4 years prior to Tokyo SOS, and was extremely popular worldwide. Also, the Liopleurodon in Walking with Dinosaurs is very inaccurate to how the creature looked in real life, and the concept art for the creature in Tokyo SOS looks more like the Walking with Dinosaurs design than the actual real-world Liopleurodon. Now again, this is just speculation, but until proven wrong, I'm just going to believe this. Lost Italian Cut. Alright, so this isn't actually a lost movie anymore, but it was for a little while. In 1977, an Italian version of the original Godzilla film was released in Italy. This version of the film, also referred to as Godzilla the Eurotrash version, only came to be because of a man named Luigi Cozzi, who loved the film when he was a child, and by 1977 had become a pretty popular film distributor and producer in Italy. One of his favorite things to do was to purchase old sci-fi movies and play them in local cinemas, and this is where Godzilla came to be. Luigi Cozzi decided to create its own Godzilla film after King Kong 76 reignited interest in kaiju films. So what did he do? Well, he got an old negative print of the American cut of Godzilla from Toho, and tried to colorize it. Though it didn't really work. He had his own way of colorizing things at the time, and it resulted in, this. I guess it has its own unique charm to it. But that wasn't the only thing he added to the film. You see, Godzilla is 1 hour and 20 minutes long, But films in Italy at the time were normally an hour and 30 minutes, so Luigi needed to come up with 10 more minutes of footage. So he took footage from Godzilla Raids Again, The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, The Day the Earth Caught Fire, and real news footage from the bombings of Hiroshima that had real dead nuclearized bodies. Is nuclearized a word? It's a word today. So yeah, that's something. So if you've seen this movie without knowing that there are actual dead bodies in it, well, there you go. Now you know that you've seen the aftermaths of Hiroshima. So yeah, that's something. But hey, Godzilla 1977 also had a new 70s Italian soundtrack. Finally, despite supplying Luigi with the American version of Godzilla, Toho has never acknowledged this film's existence, and to this day, it remains rather obscure outside of the Godzilla fandom.
Godzilla, the horrible lizard from the sea, will return on the Cartoon Network. Look out, he's gonna eat you!
How do you do
Godzilla's actually pretty cool. Except when he's hungry.
What's wrong with Snickers?
You're not you when you're hungry. Snickers satisfies.
Ooh, Godzilla. Try a Tic Tac, brother. Stinky on Cartoon Network.
God's Godzilla. God's Godzilla is a cancelled 1979 Godzilla film that was meant to kickstart the next era of Godzilla. The plot of the film takes place in the middle of World War III, where the gods of Earth, or actually aliens, arrive on Earth in a spaceship. They then discover Godzilla's dead body, and then they revive him. The United Nations are then like, oh shit, Godzilla's back, and rush in to defeat him. But then Jesus arrives and manipulates Godzilla to destroy humanity, and inflicts humanity with nightmares and hallucinations. Then the gods and Godzilla begin to destroy the world as an image of humanity's future is projected upon the skies above Giza, showing humanity's mutated, demonic descendants. Jesus' voice then booms over the land as he stands on top of one of the pyramids, shouting, "Behold your future!" And then Godzilla crouches down like a sphinx, and Jesus returns to heaven. So this was cancelled for a couple of reasons. One being, everything about it. Zilla's privates. For some terrible reason, Godzilla 1998 designer Patrick Tatopoulos revealed in the film's commentary that he had sculpted female genitalia onto Godzilla's CGI model, though apparently it's not very visible in the film. So yeah, Godzilla 1998, or Zilla, or whatever you want to call her, has a vagina, despite being a lizard. I'm not happy I know about this, and I'm sure you're not happy to know this either. The 80th Academy Awards. For the 80th Academy Awards, hosted in 2008, a montage of characters from different movies living in New York City together was played. It's almost like those Cartoon Network bumpers with all the Cartoon Network characters living in the same city. Anyways, for some weird reason, Zilla, or Godzilla 1998, appears in it, and briefly battles King Kong from Peter Jackson's King Kong. So I guess Godzilla 98 has fought the kaiju before. And in a weird way, this is the second official Godzilla vs. King Kong. Monster Warrior Godzilla. Monster Warrior Godzilla is a story featured in the Godzilla comic. Yeah, I bet you probably thought I forgot about the stories I mentioned to talk about. Well, Monster Warrior Godzilla was created by a suit actor Ryu, and tells the story of Godzilla and multiple other kaijus being from an alternate reality, and are very, very humanoid. They're at war with humanity, and are being hunted to extinction, as humanity wants to invade and basically just take over the entire monster dimension. Godzilla is the leader of the kaiju army, which consists of Titanosaurus, Gorosaurus, King Caesar, Anguirus, Biollante, before she gets executed by Godzilla for betraying the kaiju, and Camobass. Godzilla then gets armored up in his legendary battle armor and sword, and battles the Japanese Prime Minister, who has Mechani Kong, Mechagodzilla, Jet Jaguar, and Mongira defending him. Godzilla takes them all down in a huge battle, and then ascends back into his reality in a beam of light. So yeah, it's kind of a weird story. Bet you never thought you'd see scaly Godzilla. Godzilla vs. M. Godzilla vs. M is a cancelled Godzilla film from 2001. The plot is about an astronaut who is rescued from space after a strange accident left him orbiting Earth's atmosphere. Though a couple days later, he slowly begins to transform eternally for unknown reasons. He runs off into the forest around Mount Fuji because he doesn't want his daughter to see him like this. Though sadly for him, she finds him post-transformation, and now he's this giant kaiju, but still retains his human soul and memories. Godzilla then shows up to destroy Japan, but is attacked by this new monster, now going by the name of M. M battles Godzilla twice, but is eventually killed. His daughter then gives up her life force to revive M. M then battles Godzilla one more time and defeats him, and then carries him out to sea, where they both disappear forever. Ultimately, this film never came to be because Kaneko, the writer for the film, felt it would be too dark for a film released around New Year's, which is probably one of the stranger reasons why Godzilla film's been cancelled. King Kong in a Jet Jaguar suit. When Godzilla vs. Megalon was being marketed in Germany, Jet Jaguar was marketed under the name King Kong, in order to draw in a larger crowd. Because, I mean, hey, a Godzilla movie, it's gonna bring in a large crowd, but you throw Kong in there too, more people are gonna see it. And since then, this has led many to believe that the German dubbed movie actually claims that Jet Jaguar was actually just King Kong in a robot suit. Or at least the marketing of the film stated this. This is actually completely false, as no piece of marketing or part of the dub even mentions King Kong being in the robot suit. They just mention that King Kong is Jet Jaguar, so I guess he's not wearing a suit, he just, is Jet Jaguar. Biollante King Ghidorah Hybrid. In the sequel to the Godzilla comic Raids Again, there's a story in which King Ghidorah is sent to attack Earth, but is stopped before getting to Earth by Biollante, who is living in space debris around the planet. The two giant kaiju battle it out, which leads to Biollante absorbing Ghidorah's power, and then becoming a Biollante King Ghidorah hybrid that goes on to battle King Ghidorah. Though even in this ultra-powerful form, King Ghidorah is still able to defeat this abomination. Godzilla Kingdom. Godzilla Kingdom is a Lost Godzilla series that ran from October 1st, 1996 to August 15th, 1997. The show was hosted by a woman just called Doctor, and her kaiju friend, Megabyte, who would go on to analyze data and stats about Godzilla and other kaiju like him. Basically, think Wikizilla videos, but made in the late 90s with really poor CGI, and they're only 5 minutes long. The show ran for 224 episodes, and all of them are lost, because it was just a promotional show, so they didn't really feel the need to archive it. Unless somebody's got all these episodes recorded somewhere, it doesn't seem like Megabyte will ever be seen again. Giant Dr. Serizawa. For some really strange reason, in the Dreamcast game Godzilla Generations, you can unlock and play as a giant kaiju-sized version of Dr. Serizawa from the first Godzilla film. In order to unlock him, you need to complete the game as all the other kaiju. He only has 2 attacks, a laser cannon that extends from his eye patch, and the oxygen destroyer, which unleashes lightning in pretty much every single direction. He can also recover health by kneeling, which causes a ray of light to appear above him. I have no idea why they added him as a character. The Millennium Era was never supposed to happen. Originally, after Godzilla vs. Destroya in 1995, Toho intended for the Godzilla franchise to go on a hiatus for a decade, so the next entry would be released in 2005. However, after seeing the 1998 Godzilla film and how massive the backlash and disappointment was to that film, Toho decided to bring Godzilla out of retirement early, and so from 1999 to 2004, the Millennium Era was produced. So next time you make fun of Godzilla 98 and you wish it never happened, just remember, if that film wasn't made, then we would have never gotten Final Wars, GMK, the Kiryu Saga, Godzilla 2000's design, and this. Do you really want to live in a world without those? I didn't think so. Warning from G. So here's the final story from the Godzilla comic I want to talk about. Warding for G is about a martial artist who learns a special killing technique that can kill Godzilla. The dude uses it against Godzilla and it actually works against all odds. Godzilla dies, but at the cost of the martial artist's life, which leaves his pregnant wife a widow. And so you think that's how the story ends, right? I mean, it's already a pretty wacky story. Oh no. No, not at all. When the baby's born, it's slowly revealed to the reader that the baby is actually the reincarnation of Godzilla. So yes, Godzilla is now a human baby, and because Godzilla is not too big on humans and wants revenge for, dying, the Godzilla baby attacks his mother with a giant rock. It can also jump 20 feet in the air, which is pretty crazy. It is an absolutely insane story that I don't want to spoil the ending to. Godzilla Doom Island. Godzilla Doom Island was a canceled Godzilla toy line that was very 90s. How 90s? How about Godzilla in battle armor? And dinosaurs everywhere. Who wins? Godzilla or the T-Rex and Velociraptor? How about Mechagodzilla versus the Stegosaurus? Well, who knows, because nearly all these figures were canceled. Only a handful of these figures were actually ever released, though some were released through a contest giveaway, just like the canceled 1998 show toys I talked about earlier. Now you might be wondering, what's Doom Island? I have no idea. They never explain it outside of like a canceled commercial where they say that Godzilla is trying to absorb the energy of it, so I don't know. Maybe there's some like toxic radioactive stuff going on there because a lot of the returning monsters have new designs, like Megalon, Varan, and Baragon. Megalon especially gives me a lot of Transformers Generation 2 energy. And Gearus and Kumonga also have battle armor just like Godzilla. In fact, Gearus looks a bit like the Cart Titan's tank mode from Attack on Titan. Finally, there's the Mega Mutations figures, where Godzilla and Destroyer are rocking some spikes that come out of their thighs, and some chests that open up to reveal battering ram-like organ bone things. I don't like the lore implications that Godzilla can open his chest up and fire a bony organ out as a weapon. Godzilla vs. the Devil. Godzilla vs. the Devil was a fake, cancelled Godzilla film that was supposed to be Godzilla's return to the big screen after Terra Mechagodzilla. Supposedly, it never got past the planning stages, and the film's plot had Godzilla battle several demons before killing Satan himself. This was a mistake, however, as no such film was ever planned. This misconception comes from a well-known website called Toho Kingdom, claiming that it was being planned. This was put on the website because of a misreading of an early cancelled Godzilla script, where Bagan would appear. It also didn't really help that the script was codenamed Godzilla vs. the Devil, so oops. Godzilla and. Adventure Godzilla and, no, not Godzilla Land, Godzilla and, is a Lost Godzilla show used to promote Godzilla vs. Mothra in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. It ran for a year and lasted 26 15-minute episodes. The show is most well known for two things. The first being the animated chibi Godzilla portions of the show that would later go on to star in the Get Going Godzilla and OVAs. Thankfully, these aren't lost to time and can be found online pretty easily. But it's also well known for this footage of Godzilla and Mechagodzilla 2 beating the crap out of each other in a newsroom. In fact, the episode that this scene comes from is the only episode that's still available to watch. The show is a mixture of comedy and trivia, and because it was a promotional show, Toho didn't really see the need to archive it, which is a little strange to me because this show is actually the first appearance of Mechagodzilla 2 and Godzilla Jr. You would think they would want to archive that. Oh well, at least we got one episode of it archived. Can't say the same thing about the other lost shows. But hey look, it's Mechanicong, making his first and only ever television appearance. King Godzilla. King Godzilla is a chimera hybrid between four different kaiju. Godzilla, King Ghidorah, Biollante, and Batra. His arms are just Ghidorah's heads. He also has Batra's brain and wings, and his chest can be blown up to reveal Biollante's head, who is then able to fire sap. It's probably one of the strangest versions of Godzilla ever. Only appearing in the manga Godzilla King of the Monsters in 1993, this King of Abominations was created by a mad scientist and battled Godzilla in the mech titled Machine G after destroying multiple entire cities. Godzilla was only able to defeat this creature by dragging it into a volcano, where it, Godzilla, and Machine G all died. Godzilla Couple. In 2014, a Japanese comic titled Big Comic Original released a special Godzilla issue in celebration of the newest Godzilla film, Godzilla 2014. One of the stories in the comic is titled Godzilla Couple, and tells the story of a couple who just want to have sex when Godzilla shows up to destroy the city. So what do? Well, they just bang, as Godzilla annihilates everything around them. When the destruction is over, and everyone's finished up, what do now? I mean, the city's destroyed. Well, they bang some more, as Godzilla walks off. And that's basically the entire plot. There's no twists and turns, it's just a couple banging. And we'll occasionally cut to Godzilla destroying something, or the JSDF desperately trying to kill him. I don't know if this counts as a hentai doujin. Godzilla Gets Divorced. In 1979, a coloring book titled Godzilla Jokes and Riddles Coloring Book was released as a tie-in with the Hanna-Barbera cartoon that I talked about way back in Tier 1. This coloring book is notable for some pretty strange jokes, like, what is Godzilla's wife's name? Goddess Zilla. Where does Godzilla go surfing? Fire Island. What is Godzilla's favorite James Dean movie? Reptile Without a Cause. Where does Godzilla shop for bargains? A fire sale. But one of these attempts at comedy is very notable. That is, why did Godzilla get a divorce? He's a homewrecker, so this confirms that in this little micro-continuity, Godzilla got married, but cheated on his wife Goddessilla, and got a divorce because of that. Mecha Godzilla Sonic. In the video game Sonic Adventure, and by extension its remastered Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, you can find a robot designed after Sonic the Hedgehog and the Egg Carrier. And for years, Sonic fans were confused by its very existence. It couldn't be Metal Sonic, as Metal Sonic is right next to it. Could it be Mecha Sonic? Maybe. But finally fans figured it out. It's a reference to the Showa-era Mechagodzilla. Don't believe me? Well, this robot has a similar torso, knees, finger cannons, and eyes to Mechagodzilla. The eyes even have the same pattern as Mechagodzilla's eyes. So yeah, it's fairly clear that this dude's a reference to Mechagodzilla. The March 15th, 1977 airing of Godzilla vs. Megalon. Alright, so this one sounds like a really spooky entry, but it's not at all, actually. For unknown reasons, on March 15th, 1977, NBC decided to put Godzilla vs. Megalon on at prime time. So what's so strange about that? Well, they put it in a 1-hour time slot, which means the film was heavily cut down from its hour and 21-minute runtime. To make it even shorter, the film had bumpers hosted by John Belushi, who was dressed up in a Godzilla costume. All footage of him doing whatever in that Godzilla suit has become lost to time, and so has the hour-long cut of Godzilla vs. Megalon. Shipiko Special. Shipiko Special was a monster-themed game show that aired between October 24th, 1971 to September 24th, 1972, and featured numerous Godzilla kaiju appear, like Gigan, King Ghidorah, Gabara, Mothra, and even Godzilla himself. The show would even introduce original monsters, and many of them would go on to star in episodes of Go Godman, like Shiljari, Yasugon, and Sunozillas. Sadly, the show wouldn't be well archived, and the entire show has since become lost media. I think this idea should be brought back, honestly. A kaiju-themed game show would be pretty cool. Side note, there was even a kaiju featured in the show called Mechani Godzilla, who was the actual first robot Godzilla, as he predates Mechagodzilla by a couple of years. Sperm Godzilla and Cancer Cell Godzilla. Alright, so I don't really know how much of this I can show. But you see, the story Godzilla New Comedy, which was featured in the Godzilla comic reads again, is, well, a comedy story, and is about different variations of Godzilla. In truth, I couldn't actually find much information about the story itself, but I found some stuff about these variations. First, we have Cancer Cell Godzilla, who is literally made up of cancer cells from the original Godzilla. So he's just a walking mass of tumors. Think Shin Godzilla, but just significantly grosser. Then there's leukocytes, I know for a fact I'm saying that wrong, Godzilla, who's made from the blood cells of the original Godzilla. It produces acid that comes out of its skin, and then finally, there's Sperm Godzilla, giant Godzilla made of the sperm from the original Godzilla. I don't know how they got that, nor do I want to. But yeah, these guys exist. A Space Godzilla. You probably thought I forgot about a Space Godzilla, didn't you? Well, for those that don't know, A Space Godzilla was a cancelled Godzilla film in the mid-70s. Or I guess I shouldn't say cancelled, as it was just proposed to Toho, but they rejected it. The plot of this film would later be adapted into a 2-part story featured in the Japanese edition of Starlog magazine in 1979. The story goes like this. Godzilla is dying of diabetes. Off to a great start. Scientists then dissect the still-living Godzilla and attempt to communicate with its brain, and discover that Godzilla is actually a sentient alien named Roseanne, from the Godzilla planet, and is pregnant. The scientists then decide to turn Roseanne's body into a rocket, and launch the unborn child into space, aboard its barely alive mother who is still dying of diabetes. Once they get back to the Godzilla planet, they're then reunited with Roseanne's husband, Kunin. But suddenly the Godzilla planet is under attack by an all-female alien race called the Cenarians, who look like humanoid monsters with really big boobs. Kunin and his child Lilin, who was the fetus from before, who suddenly grows up, battle the aliens and save the day. You know, I wonder why a Space Godzilla never ended up being made into a movie. And that's it. That's the entire Godzilla Iceberg. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you want more, content. Check, like I said at the beginning, check out the MonsterVerse Iceberg if you want more Godzilla content from me, because I don't know how much more Godzilla content I'm going to produce. I'll probably end up doing like a tier list, like I did with the Transformers designs, with like Godzilla monsters and designs and stuff like that. But I don't know when I'll do that. As for the next iceberg will be the Lego Iceberg, and in December I'm only going to be doing one big video, which will be the Lego Iceberg. I'll sprinkle in maybe 3, 2, somewhere around there, like smaller videos. There will be like a tier list video with Transformers 1 coming out in December. It's going to be about Star Wars, which will be great. It won't be controversial at all. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun to make. I tried to throw in a decent chunk of like Godzilla 98 stuff, because I think Godzilla 98 has like kind of like a decent sized fan base, and I want to give him some stuff too. I kind of thought to myself that maybe I added too many YouTubers to this video, but it's like 5 entries, and each entry is like less than a minute long, like 40 seconds max. So it's like, oh well. Which to those people I've had people who've commented like, why do you include YouTubers and stuff like that in some icebergs? It's actually pretty simple. The reason is, if I'm doing an iceberg about a certain subject or certain like fandom or whatever, why wouldn't I include big portions of the fandom? Like Monster Island Buddies is a pretty significant member of the Godzilla fan base. So is Wikizilla. So is Dangerville. Sure, maybe like Up from the Deaths isn't as big as like those, for example, but like, why not just throw them in? Why not? I enjoy his content. Might as well give him a shout out. Why not? It's my iceberg. My video. I do what I want. And truthfully, if mentioning like community members and stuff like that is like a thing that triggers you, I don't really know what to tell you. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. I think I've said it like 10 times by now, but yeah, have a good one and stay safe.